the Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 103. Hatred, Part 7. Su Shi finally realized what went wrong, immediately covering up his chest with his lapels. However, the people who'd been facing him had already seen with clarity the part of his chest that was revealed. The skin closest to his heart was thickly dotted with over a dozen hideous holes that varied in size. Marks of the 100 Holes Curse. And this definitely wasn't a curse mark left behind by the curse. If that were to be the case, judging from how spread out these holes were, right now Su Shi's organs or even golden core should be covered in holes. He definitely wouldn't be able to use his spiritual powers. However, he could still use the transportation talisman repetitively, which drains spiritual energy. Then there could only be one explanation for where these marks came from. They had to be marks left after he cursed someone else and received a backlash. Back then, it wasn't that Wei Wuxian didn't try his hardest to find whom the culprit was in attempt to rectify his name, but there were just too many people. On top of that, finding the culprit wouldn't at all be able to sort out what happened afterward, and so he let go of the hope. Yet tonight, so long after the fruitless searching, it fell right into his lap. Jinling didn't understand. Nie Huaisang probably didn't understand either. But Lan Zichen had already looked to Jin Guangyao, sect leader Jin. Was this also part of the plan to attack Kai Path? Jin Guangyao, why do you think so? Zhang Cheng's was cold. Is it necessary to ask? If Jin Zixan weren't cursed, nothing that happened afterwards would have to happen. The attack helped you remove Jin Zixuan and Jin Zixan, both of whom were of the same generation as you. It cleared away everything that obstructed your path to the Lanling Jin sect and the position of chief cultivator. Su Shi was behind the curse, and he's a trusted subordinate of yours. Is it really necessary to ask whose orders he followed? Jin Guangyao refused to answer, as though he was focused on meditation. Wei Wuxian laughed out of rage, staring at Su Shi. Have I done anything to you? I held no enmity towards you, I didn't even know you. Jin Guangyao, young Master Wei, shouldn't you be the one who knows this the most? Could you be safe just because you hold no enmity? How could that be? In this world, everyone began without enmity. Someone would eventually lunge with the first stab. Zhang Cheng's voice was drenched in hatred. You insidious scum. Yet, Su Shi smiled coldly. Stop thinking so highly of yourself. Who told you I cursed Jin Zixan in order to frame you? Back then, I wasn't working for sect leader at all. I cursed him simply because I wanted to. Wei Wuxian, then do you hold enmity towards Jin Zixan? Su Shi, those as arrogant as him, I'll kill every single one who comes my way. Wei Wuxian knew that the arrogant person he hated the most had to be Lan Wangji. He couldn't help but ask, what even happened between Han Guangjun and you? Just which part of him is arrogant? Su Shi, which part isn't? If Lan Wangji weren't born with such a good background, what right does he have to be so arrogant? Why do they always say I imitate him? Everyone praises him for being so noble and pure. For a person like Han Guangjun to fool around and do such filthy deeds with the Yiling patriarch whose immorality the entire world condemns? What a joke! Just as Wei Wuxian was about to speak, he suddenly felt that the gloomy yet furious expression was somewhat familiar. He seemed to have seen it somewhere before. He suddenly remembered, it's you. Ke Town, Biling Lake, the waterborne abyss, the sword that vanished underwater, and the Xuanwu of slaughter, the disciple who pushed Mayan out, Su Shi. All of a sudden, Wei Wuxian burst out in laughter. He said, I understand now. Lan Wangji, understand what? Wei Wuxian shook his head. He knew what kind of person Jin Zixan was. Back then, he often treated those from affiliated sects with disregard, thinking that they were the same as servants. He even thought that partaking in a banquet alongside them would be beneath his dignity. And as a part of one of the Lanling Jin sect's affiliated sects, Su Shi must travel to Koi Tower once in a while to attend banquets, and it was impossible for him not to run into Jin Zixan. One was intolerant and unforgiving, while the other was conceited and arrogant. If something bad happened between the two, it wouldn't be strange at all for Sushi to bear grudges on Jin Zixan. If so, the reason behind Jin Zixan being cursed with 100 holes had nothing to do with him. But in the end, he was the one who bore the charge. The cause of the attack at the Qiankai Path was that Jin Zixan was cursed with 100 holes. If this cause didn't exist, the Langling Jin sect would have had no reason to attack him. Wen Ning wouldn't have lost control and gone on the rampage. Wei Wuxian wouldn't have had to be responsible for a life as heavy as Jin Zixuan's, and the things that happened later wouldn't have had to happen. Yet now, he finally realized even the reason behind culprit's curse wasn't to frame him. Even the cause didn't have anything to do with him. Such a fact was truly difficult to accept. As he laughed, Wei Wuxian's eyes reddened. He mocked, whether at himself or otherwise, "I can't believe it's because of someone like you. Because of such a ridiculous reason." But Jin Guangyao seemed like he knew what he thought. "Young Master Wei, you really shouldn't think like this." Wei Wuxian, "Oh? You know what I think?" Jin Guangyao, "Of course. It's quite easy. You're definitely thinking about how unfortunate you are. In reality, you're not. Even if Sushi didn't curse Jin Zixan, Mr. Wei, you'd receive a siege sooner or later, because of some other reason." He smiled, "Because that's what kind of a person you are. At best, you're the untamed hero, at worst, you offend people wherever you go. Unless all those whom you've offended lived their lives safely, as soon as something happened to them or someone did something to them, the first person they suspect would be you, and the first person they seek revenge on would also you. And this is something you have no control over." Somehow, Wei Wuxian smiled, "What should I do? For some reason, I think you make a lot of sense." Jin Guangyao, "And even if you didn't lose control at the Qiankai Path, could you guarantee you didn't lose control sometime in the rest of your life? Thus, someone like you is destined to have a short life. You see? Doesn't it feel a lot better if you think about it this way?" Zhang Qing raged, "You're the one who's got a fucking short life." With no regard to his heavy injuries, he grabbed Sandu and was ready to charge. Immediately, blood gushed out. Jinling hurried to press him back down. Unable to move, Zhang Qing was full of resentment, cursing, "You son of a prostitute, who bears no shame as long as you can rise. You weren't the one who told Sushi to do it? Who are you trying to fool?" Hearing the words "son of a prostitute," Jin Guangyao's smile froze for an instant. He looked toward Zhang Qing. After some thought, he began in a lukewarm tone, "Sect leader Zhang, calm down a bit, won't you? I understand what you're feeling right now. You're in such a terrible mood only because you know the truth behind your golden core. When you think back on what you did all these years, your proud heart feels a tinge of guilt, and so you're anxious to find a culprit for what happened to young Master Wei in his past life, a villain onto whom you can push all liability. Then, you'd lash out at him, both in vengeance for young Master Wei and to ease some of your burden. If being determined that everything from the 100 Holes curse to the attack at the Qiankai Path was part of my single-handed scheme would ease your troubles, then feel free to think whatever you please. But what you have to understand is that, for what happened to young Master Wei in the end, you are responsible too, and in fact, you are very much so. Why did so many people crusade against the Yiling Patriarch? Why did they shout their support, no matter if they were involved or not? Why was he one-sidedly condemned by so many? Was it really their sense of justice? Of course not. A part of the reason is you." Zhang Qing laughed coldly. Lan Ziqian knew Jin Guangyao was going to start calling white black again. He shouted in a hushed voice, "Sect leader Jin." Jin Guangyao wasn't swayed, continuing with a smile, "Back then, the Langling Jin sect, the King Nai sect, and the Gustalan sect had already finished fighting over the biggest share. The rest could only get some small shrimps. You, on the other hand, had just rebuilt Lotus Pier, and behind you was the Yiling Patriarch, Wei Wuxian, the danger of whom was immeasurable. Do you think the other sects would like to see a young sect leader who was so advantaged? Luckily, you didn't seem to be on good terms with your Shikshin, And since everyone thought there was an opportunity, of course they'd add fuels to your fire if they could. No matter what, to weaken the Yunzhang sect was to strengthen themselves. Sect leader Zhang, if only your attitude towards your Shikshan was just a bit better, showing everyone that your bond was too strong to be broken for them to have a chance, or if you exhibited just a bit more tolerance after what happened, things wouldn't have become what they were. Oh, speaking of it, you were also a main force of the siege at Burial Mound. Wei Wuxian, looks like being called the son of a prostitute is really sect leader Jin's weak spot. No wonder you killed Qi Feng's son. With the mention of Nie Mingju, Lan Zichen's expression changed. Jin Guangyao's smile paused as well. Immediately afterwards, he stood up. Now that he finished meditating, he tried the fingers of his left hand to find that they were finally able to move properly. He spoke at once, prepared to depart. Sushi, yes. Two monks held Lan Zichen, one on each side. Just as they were about to open the doors, Jin Guangyao suddenly spoke, I almost forgot. He turned to Lan Zichen, now that I think of it, Ziwu Jun's sealed spiritual pathways should be restored soon. Lan Zichen's cultivation was much higher than his. For Jin Guangyao to seal his spiritual pathways, he had to seal them once every 2 hours, or else Lan Zichen would be fight out of the seal on his own. He walked towards Lan Zichen, excuse me. Just as he was about to reach out, something white and heavy suddenly plummeted to the ground before him. Alert, Jin Guangyao crossed over it. As his eyes focused, he saw that it was a pale body. A completely bare woman crawled on the ground, face down, twisting her body and limbs as though she wanted to go in the direction of Jin Guangyao. Sushi lunged with his sword. The woman screamed, and fire erupted around her. She stood up, staggering as she reached out at Jin Guangyao again. Both her body and her face were burned black amid the flames, but the extreme hatred in her eyes remained. With another lunge, Sushi slashed across her body, causing her to evaporate. Before Jin Guangyao could walk a few steps back, he tripped over something, turning around only to find two entangled bodies. One of them grabbed his ankle. At this point, a whistle came from behind. Sushi seethed, Wei Wuxian. Without anyone realizing, on the Guanyin statue in the temple were painted in blood many jumbled talismans. The eye of the array was right inside of the Guanyin temple. And now, since it had already been destroyed by Wei Wuxian without anyone noticing, those that were sealed inside now surged out incessantly. Suddenly, Jinling cried, what is this? Zhang Cheng kept on using his hands to slap Jinling robes. The hems of his clothes had already begun to burn, all on its own. Jinling was already relatively fine. A few monks were already surrounded by flames, rolling on the ground screaming. Sushi and Jin Guangyao knew they had to wipe off the blood Wei Wuxian painted over the Guanyin statue, but they were obstructed by the cultivators rolling on the ground and the naked ghouls that kept on appearing. Under Wei Wuxian's command, the ghouls didn't attack Zhangqing, Jinling, and the rest, but Jinling still cross-sued before himself. What in the world are these things? I've never seen such naked, shameless ghouls. Rage burst from Jin Guangyao's eyes. With one strike, fire exploded. He finally reached the Guanyin statue. Just as he was about to wipe at the talismans that Wei Wuxian painted, he suddenly felt something cold at the back of his waist. Lan Zichen's low voice sounded, do not move. Jin Guangyao was about to counter the attack when Lan Zichen struck once on his back. Jin Guangyao, Ziwu Jun. Your spiritual powers are back. Before Lan Zichen could answer, on the other side, Sushi's sword Nanping had already thrusted toward Wei Wuxian. However, it came into contact with a sword the glare of which seemed similar but the glow of which was much more crystalline. Baigan. As the two swords hit, Nanping snapped into two. Right then, Sushi's palm tore. Blood dripped everywhere. All of the joints in his arm crackled. The sword fell to the ground, and he held his right arm with his left, face as pale as ash. On the other hand, Lan Wangji gripped Baikan in one hand as he grabbed Wei Wuxian's waist with his other, pushing Wei Wuxian behind him for better protection. In reality, Wei Wuxian had no need for his protection, but he still leaned against his body with both comfort and compliance. All of these happened in just a few seconds. After a few blinks, the Lanling Jin sex cultivators finally realized what happened. Yet, Sushi still held his bleeding right arm. The wound at his chest had already opened up. Baikon's blade was right against Jin Guangyao's throat. Now that their main pillars were restricted, none of them dared do anything too rashly. Just as Lan Zichen was about to speak, the expressions of everyone within the Guanyin temple changed. Lan Zichen, young Master Wei, please. Remove these things first. Not only were these ghouls naked and filthy, they were even letting out embarrassing moans, making it rather clear what they were doing. Nobody had seen such indecent ghouls before. Lan Zichen turned his head to the side. Zhang Cheng's face was dark, while Jin Ling was between pale and flushed. Wei Wuxian glanced at Lan Wangji, who stood beside him. He thought it'd be a bit too unreasonable to make someone who responded to pornography with extreme embarrassment when he was young view such a thing. He protested, I only wanted to let out the ghouls he sealed at the Guanyin temple so that we could delay them for as long as possible. I never thought I'd let out these things. Like Lan Zichen, Lan Wangji retracted his gaze after taking only one look at those ghouls. Turning to another direction, he said two words, a fire. Wei Wuxian nodded immediately, continuing in all seriousness, yes. All of these ghouls were burned to death. It looks like a big fire once erupted here, burning quite a lot of people to death. And afterwards, to hide everything as well as to seal away these ghouls who formed because of their deaths, sect leader Jin decided to build a Guanyin temple here. Lan Zichen, sect leader Jin, is the fire related to you? Zhang Cheng's voice was cold, those ghouls abhor him. Is it possible that it isn't? In Chapter The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 104. Hatred, Part 8. Lan Zichen, sect leader Jin. Could you give us a full explanation? Jin Guangyao said nothing. His knuckles turned white. Wei Wuxian, looks like sect leader Jin doesn't want to say it. He raised his hand and a naked female corpse immediately appeared beneath it. Wei Wuxian put his palm atop her head, but just because you don't say it, do you think I won't find a way to know? Just as he entered empathy, before he even opened his eyes yet, Wei Wuxian found himself surrounded by an intense aroma of rouge and powder. A coquettish voice came out of his mouth, her? She wants to marry, of course. She was over 20 when she met the man. At such an age, she'd lose her popularity in just a few years. And so she had to bear a son knowing she'd be scolded. She just wanted to get out, after all. But then again, the man had to have wanted the son. He opened his eyes. What he saw was a wide hall that could be described as beautiful. About a dozen round tables rested within the hall, a couple of clients and fair-looking women sitting at each. Of the women, some showed their shoulders, some wore unfastened hair, some sat on the customers' laps, some fed wine to others. All of their expressions seemed sweet and drunken. It was clear what this place was at first glance. Wei Wuxian thought, so the one who got burned to death in the Guanyin temple is a prostitute. No wonder all those ghouls were naked. They were probably all prostitutes and clients. One of the clients chuckled, a son is a son, after all. Did the man not want him? The woman, she herself said that the man's a big shot from a cultivational sect. Then he must have many sons in his house. Nothing is cherished that isn't rare. Could he have cared about this one outside? She waited and nobody came to get her, and so she could only raise him herself, couldn't she? It's been 14 years since. A few of the clients asked, a big shot? Did such a thing really happen? The woman, oh, why would I lie to you about something like this? Her son is running errands for us right now. There, that's the one. The woman twisted her waist, waving at a boy holding a tray, Zhou Ming. Come here. The boy did as he was told and walked over, and Zenji, what's up? All at once, Wei Wuxian understood everything. The clients scrutinized Ming Yao with judging eyes. Ming Yao asked again, "Am I needed for something?" Anzin grinned, "Zhou Ming, are you still learning those things lately?" Ming Yao paused, "Which things?" Anzin, "The things your mom wants you to learn, things like calligraphy, etiquette, swordsmanship, meditation. How are those things going?" Before she even finished, the clients began to chuckle as if they found something to be funny. Anzin turned around, "Don't laugh, I'm telling the truth here. His mom's raising him as a young master of a wealthy family. She taught him how to read and write, bought him all those swordsmanship pamphlets, and even wants to send him to school." The client exclaimed, "Send him to school? Did I hear wrong?" Anzin, "No. Zhou Ming, tell these young masters. You've gone to the library before, haven't you?" The client, "Is he still going?" Anzian, "Nah, he came back just a few days later. He wouldn't go again no matter what. Zhou Ming, do you not like studying or do you not like the place?" Ming Yao didn't say anything. Anzin giggled, poking a finger painted bright red at Ming Yao's forehead, "Little one, you angry?" She pressed quite hard. A light, red mark appeared in the center of Ming Yao's forehead, almost like a shadow of a vermilion mark. He touched his forehead, "No." Anzian waved her hands, "Enough, enough. We've got nothing for you. You can go." Ming Yao turned around. Before he walked a few steps, she picked up something from the table and coaxed, "Here's a fruit for you." Ming Yao turned around and the emerald fruit hit his chest, falling to the ground and rolling away. Anzin complained, "Why are you so slow? Can't even catch a fruit. Hurry and pick it up. Don't waste it." Ming Yao curved the corners of his mouth. He should be 14 already, but, perhaps because he was unusually small, he seemed to be only 12 or 13. It was extremely uncomfortable seeing such a smile appear on his face. He bent down slowly, picked up the fruit, and wiped it on his clothes, his smile even deeper. "Thank you, Sister Anzin." "Anzin, no worries. Go work hard." "Ming Yao, call me if you need me." After he walked away, one of the clients commented, "If my son were at such a place, I'd take him back no matter what." Someone else followed, "His father was really a big shot from a cultivational sect? Shouldn't it be more than easy to buy a prostitute's freedom and give her some money to raise her son? It's only the lift of a finger." Anzin, "You can't believe everything this woman says, can you? No matter what, that big shot only exists in her words. In my opinion, it might have just been a well-off merchant before she exaggerated so much." Suddenly, someone screamed. The sound of cups and saucers shattering on the ground came from the second floor as a can crashed down, smashing to pieces as it hit the center of the hall. It scared the wits out of the people enjoying themselves at the nearby tables. Anzin had also almost tripped, yelling, "What happened?" Ming Yao cried, "Mom!" Anzin looked up. A burly man dragged a woman out of a room by her hair. Anzin tugged the client beside her, whether nervous or excited, "She's at it again." Ming Yao rushed upstairs. Covering her scalp, the woman tried her hardest to pull her clothes up her shoulders. As she saw Ming Yao run over, she hurried, "I told you not to come upstairs. Go down. Go down this instant." Ming Yao went to peel away the client's hands as he received a kick in the stomach and rolled down the stairs, causing a wave of exclamations. This was the third time Wei Wuxian saw him roll down flights of stairs from a kick. With a loud scream, the woman had her hair pulled by the client again, all the way until she was dragged downstairs, stripped, and tossed onto the street. He spat on her naked body, cursing, "Hacks do nothing but haggle, an old whore thinks she's fresh meat." Panicking, the woman lay prone in the center of the street, scared to get up. With one move, everyone would see everything. The passerbys on the street were both astonished and thrilled, lingering as they pointed with glinting eyes. The doors to the brothel were also cramped with the women inside, chuckling as they told the story of the poor old woman to their clients just like Anzin did. Only one of the ladies squeezed through the doors. She took off the gauze robe that was so flimsy to begin with, revealing half of her full, snowy breasts enwrapped by a crimson slip, her waist was exceptionally thin as well. She was more than eye-catching and everyone hurried to take a look at her. The lady spat, cursing, "Keep on looking, you bastards! Do you have the right to look at someone like me? With each look you gotta pay, where's the money? Come, where's the money?" As she cursed, she reached out and asked the bystanders for money. The crowd dispersed somewhat, and she threw the robe she took off onto the woman, the two of them staggering into the main hall. She scolded as she walked, "It's been so long since I've told you to change things up. What's the pride for? You've had your lesson, huh? Remember it next time." Wei Wuxian thought, "The woman somehow looks a bit familiar. Where have I seen her before?" The woman whispered, "Ayao, Ayao." From the kick, Meng Yao wasn't able to get up for a long time, still lying on the ground. The lady grabbed one with each hand and dragged away both mother and son. A client beside Enzin inquired, "Who's the pretty one?" Enzin spat out 2 sunflower seed shells, "A famous vixen. She's quite scary." Someone sighed in disappointment, "This is the talented Mengshi from back then? How did she end up like this?" Enzin switched up a grin, "She sure did. She was set on bearing a child. Could a woman keep up her looks after she gives birth? If not because she could manage to live off her past name of being talented, there might not be any who comes to her. I say it's all because of the books." A client showed his deep understanding, "Of course. Those who've touched ink always have that inexplicable pride with them. They don't want to give up the notion." Enzin, "If she could feed herself with the books she's read, then I wouldn't be saying anything, but it's just a gimmick to attract men after all. I'm gonna be blunt here, we're all bitches, and you're better just because you've read some books? What's the pride for? Not only do the people outside look down on her, do you think our other sisters here like her either? The clients here sometimes choose to see a young maiden keep up her modesty as a change of pace, but who'd pay for an old, ugly one? It's long since her fame dwindled. Everyone knows, and she's the only one who doesn't understand." At this point, someone patted Enzin from behind. As Enzin turned around, she saw the lady from back then stand behind her, raising her hand to slap. With a paw, Enzin took the slap. She was blank for a moment before she raged, "You whore! The lady, you whore! Chit-chatting every single day, does that tongue of yours have nothing else to do?" Enzin screamed, "The fuck does what I say have to do with you?" The two women fought on the first floor of the hall, using both their nails and their teeth, pulling on each other's hair as they cursed with, "I'll cut apart your face sooner or later, or nobody will want you even if you give him money." The vulgarity of their words were almost intolerable to the ear. Many of the prostitutes came to stop them. "Cece! Stop it! Cece!" Wei Wuxian finally realized why he felt familiarity when he saw the lady's face. If 7 or 8 scars crisscrossed over the face, wouldn't it be Cece, the woman who came to Lotus Pier to expose the secret? Suddenly, he felt a wave of heat crash into his face. The entire hall had at once sunken into an ocean of fiery red. Wei Wuxian immediately pulled himself out of empathy. As he opened his eyes, Lan Wangji asked, "How was it?" Lan Zichen spoke up as well, "Young Master Wei, what did you see?" Wei Wuxian drew in a breath to calm himself before replying, "I'm guessing that the Guanyin Temple was where sect leader Jin grew up." Jin Guangyao remained collected. "Zhongqing, where he grew up. Didn't he?" He was just about to say didn't he grew up at a brothel when he suddenly understood as well, this Guanyin Temple used to be a brothel. He burned the place down and built a Guanyin Temple on top of it. Lan Zichen, "You really started the fire?" Jin Guangyao, "Yes." Zhongqing laughed coldly, "You're acknowledging it quite well, aren't you?" Jin Guangyao, "At this point, is there any difference between one thing more and one thing less?" After a moment of silence, Lan Zichen asked, "Was it to remove the traces?" Although many knew that Lian Fengzun grew up at a brothel, through all these years, nobody knew which exact brothel he was from. This was quite strange indeed. Everyone understood that Lian Fengzun was pulling the strings behind the scenes, but not many would have expected that he burned down the whole place at which he was born and grew up. Zhen Guangyao, not entirely. Lan Zichen sighed and didn't continue. Zhen Guangyao, aren't you going to ask me why? Lan Zichen shook his head. A moment later, he spoke, but without answering the question. In the past, it was not that I did not know what you did, but that I believed you had your reasons behind doing them. He continued, but, you have done too much. And I no longer know if I should believe you. Fatigue and disappointment sunk heavily into his tone. The storm raged on outside. Wind seeped through the slit between the temple's doors. Amid the shrill wails, Zhen Guangyao suddenly collapsed onto the ground. Everyone paused in surprise. Wei Wuxian, who just confiscated the sword at his waist, was surprised as well. Weakly, Zhen Guangyao began, "Brother, I'm sorry." Hearing this, even Wei Wuxian felt embarrassed for him. He couldn't help from saying, I mean, let's fight nicely instead of talking. Can't we just fight?" His face changed just like that, and his legs gave out just like that. There was no dignity or whatsoever. Lan Zichen's face was a mixture of emotions as well. Zhen Guangyao continued, "Brother, you've known me for many years. No matter what, you know how I treat you. I no longer want the position of chief cultivator, and I've completely destroyed the Stygian tiger seal as well. After tonight, I'll be traveling to Dongying without returning ever again. For the sake of this, let me live, won't you?" Traveling to Dongying, in simpler terms, would be to make a run for it. It sounded quite shameless, but Zhen Guangyao had always been known for flexibility. If he could soften, he'd never face steel with steel. With its forces, the Lanling Jin sect could surpass just a few sects, but if all of the sects joined together to crusade against it, walking the paths of the Qishanwen sect's destruction, it was only a matter of time. Compared to lingering until then, it was much better to retreat this moment to lie low and conserve energy. In the future, there might be a chance to make a comeback and rise again. Wei Wuxian, sect leader Jin, you said the tiger seal had been completely destroyed. Could you take it out for me to take a look at it? Zhen Guangyao, young Master Wei, the restored version isn't the original one after all. There's a limit on how many times it can be used. It's become completely useless already. Besides, you know best just how much dark energy it hosts. Do you think I'd carry with me a piece of scrap that's lost its use and could only bring disaster? Wei Wuxian, I wouldn't know. Perhaps you could find another Zhu Yang? Zhen Guangyao, brother, every word of what I say is true. His tone was more than earnest. Ever since he captured Lan Zichen, he'd indeed been treating him with respect. At this point, Lan Zichen wasn't able to turn against him yet. He could only sigh, "Sect leader Jin, I have already said, when you went your own way to scheme such havoc at Burial Mound, that there was no longer the need to call me brother." Zhen Guangyao, what happened at Burial Mound was an accident, a mistake. But, I can't go back anymore. Lan Zichen, what do you mean you cannot go back? Lan Wangji frowned slightly, his voice cold, "Brother, do not engage in excessive conversation with him." Wei Wuxian reminded him as well, "Sect leader Lan, do you remember what you said to sect leader Zhang? Don't spend too long talking to him." Lan Zichen knew as well just how much Zhen Guangyao could do when he opened his mouth. But whenever he heard there might hidden reasons, he just had to hear it. This was exactly what Zhen Guangyao aimed at. He lowered his voice, "I received a letter." In Chapter The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 105. Hatred, Part 9. Lan Zichen, what letter? Zhen Guangyao, a letter of threat. The letter said, those things would be publicized for the world to see in 7 days. They wanted me to either turn myself in and apologize, or wait for the day of my death. Everyone understood. Of course, Zhen Guangyao couldn't just wait for his death to come. Instead of having his name be ruined and his sect be overthrown by the mockery of all the sects, he'd be the one to strike first. At that time, even if the opponent really spread the rumors of all his past deeds everywhere, after the siege, the Sex would be drained of the energy to bother him. Unfortunately, it was all wrecked by Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji. Lan Zichen, even so, you cannot go the entire way and settle on murder. Like this, you. He didn't even give Lan Zichen a reason to speak in favor of him. Zhen Guangyao, or else what could I do? Wait until everything's been exposed, wait until the rumors soar above the cities, wait until I've become the laughingstock of all the world of cultivation before I kneel down and apologize, begging for their pardon by placing my face under their feet for them to step on? Brother. There is no third path. It is either their death or mine. Anger began to appear over Lan Zichen's face. He stepped away. Is this not all because you did the things in the letter? If you never did those things, how could anyone come across the evidence to hold against you? Zhen Guangyao, brother, listen to me. I don't deny that I did those things. Lan Zichen, how could you deny them? There are both witnesses and proof. Zhen Guangyao, and so I said I don't deny them. But to have killed my father, my wife, my son, my brother, if not because I had no other choice, why would I have done those things? Could it be that I'm really so out of my mind in your eyes? Lan Zichen's expression calmed somewhat. Fine. I will ask you a few questions. You can explain one by one. Lan Wangji, brother. He unsheathed Baigan. Seeing how he seemed like he was about to injure Guangyao right there, Lan Zichen hurried, do not worry. He is injured, and his weapon is confiscated as well. He is at a great disadvantage. With so many people here, he cannot do anything. On the other side, Wei Wuxian gave Sushi a kick, stopping his intention to move in secrecy. Lan Zichen, go deal with things over there. I will stay here. Hearing Sushi's enraged roar, Lan Wangji walked over. Wei Wuxian knew that Lan Zichen still had some feelings towards this sworn brother of his. He had some inexplicable expectations of him and just had to give him this chance to speak. Similarly, Wei Wuxian wanted to hear a few words from Zhen Guangyao's perspective as well, and so he listened. Lan Zichen, first, your father, former sect leader Zhen, did you really use such a method too? Zhen Guangyao spoke carefully, I'd like to answer this question last. Lan Zichen shook his head before continuing, second, your wife. As though he couldn't say it, he immediately changed his phrasing, your sister, Qin Su, did you really marry her while knowing what blood relationship you had with her? Zhen Guangyao stared blankly at him. Suddenly, tears rolled down his eyes. He answered with pain, yes. Lan Zichen took in a deep breath. His face was almost ashen. Zhen Guangyao whispered, but I really had no choice. Lan Zichen scolded, how could you have no choice? It was your marriage. Would it not have been fine as long as you chose not to marry her? Even if you hurt Qin Su's heart because of it, it would have been better than destroying a woman who loved you and respected you with all her heart. A woman who had never treated you badly. Zhen Guangyao, did I not love her with all my heart? But I had no choice, that's all there is to it. Yes. It was my marriage, but could I really not have married her with just my word? Brother, there has to be a bottom line to your naivety. I spent so much effort, went through such lengths for Qin Kangyi to answer my proposal, and as the wedding day approached, I finally satisfied both Qin Kangyi and Jin Guangshan, but now you're telling me I should have called off the wedding just like that? What reason should I have used? What should I have told the two of them? Brother, do you know how I felt when Madame Qin came to me to secretly reveal the truth, just as I thought everything was perfect? It wouldn't have scared me more if a streak of lightning sliced through my skull. Do you know why she didn't go to Jin Guangshan and instead begged me in secrecy? It was because she was raped by Jin Guangshan. That good father of mine, he didn't even let the wife of a subordinate who's been with him for so long go. He didn't even remember he had a new daughter. For so many years, she didn't dare tell this to her husband, Qin Kangyi. If I suddenly broke off the engagement, they would have noticed what was going on, and Jin Guangshan and Qin Kangyu would have fallen out with each other. Who do you think would be the one that was shunned by both sides and met the worst end? Although it wasn't the first time they heard of Jin Guangshan's shameless acts in this realm, the people present still felt some disgusted chills, whichever emotion was greater. Lan Zichen, then even though you married Qin Su with no choice, you could have treated her coldly. Why did you? And why did you have to kill your own son with your own hands, after a song was born? Jin Guangyao hugged his head, his voice bitter. I never touched Su again after our marriage. A song. We had him before we married. Back then, I was afraid of further delay and additional issues. So he and Qin Su consummated their marriage beforehand. If not because of this, he wouldn't have somehow ended up engaging in incest with his younger sister. At this point, he didn't know which to detest more, his father who wasn't like a father at all, or himself who was so suspicious of others. With a sigh, Lan Zichen continued, "Third, do not try to avoid it and answer me, did you plan the death of Jin Zizhuan on purpose?" Hearing his father's name, Jin Ling, who'd been holding Zhongqing, widened his eyes. Lan Wangji raised his voice somewhat, "Brother, you believe him?" Lan Zichen's expression was complicated. Of course I do not believe that Jin Zizhuan ran into the attack at Qiyangkai Path by accident, but let him speak first. Jin Guangyao knew he wouldn't be believed if he denied it no matter what. He clenched his teeth. I indeed didn't run into Jin Zizhuan by accident. Jin Ling immediately clenched his fists. Jin Guangyao continued, but I've never thought of planning everything that happened afterward either. You don't have to think of me as so clever and faultless. Many things can't be controlled at all. How could I have known that he'd definitely die by Wei Wuxian's hands together with Jin Zixin? How could I have predicted that Wei Wuxian would definitely lose control and the Ghost General would definitely run riot? Wei Wuxian's voice was harsh, and you said you didn't run into him by accident? Isn't that self-contradiction? Jin Guangyao, I don't deny that I told him about the attack at Qiyangkai Path on purpose, but I only thought that he'd encounter some difficulties if he ran into you when you were being troubled by his cousin, since he'd never been on good terms with you. How could I have known that you would simply kill everyone present, Mr. Wei? Wei Wuxian laughed, enraged, you're really. Suddenly, Jin Ling screamed, why? He stood up from beside Zhongqing. Eyes red, he rushed toward Jin Guangyao as he shouted, why did you have to do this? Nie Huaisang hurried to pull back Jin Ling, who seemed as though he wanted to fight with Jin Guangyao. Jin Guangyao returned the question, why? He turned to Jin Ling, Ling, then could you tell me why? Why is it that even if I face everyone with a smile, I might not even receive the lowest form of respect, while even though your father was extremely arrogant, people flocked to him? Could you tell me why we were born from the same person but your father could relax at home with the love of his life playing with his child, while I never even dared be alone for long with my wife, shivering out of fright at first glance of my son? And I was ordered to do such a thing by my father as if it was natural, to kill an extremely dangerous figure who could flip out and conjure up a bloody massacre with his corpses anytime. Why is it that even though we were born on the same day, Jin Guangshan could host a grand banquet for one son, and watch with his own eyes how his subordinate kicked his other son down Koi Tower, from the first stair to the last? He finally revealed the hatred hidden deep within him. It wasn't directed at neither Jin Zizhuan nor Wei Wuxian, but rather his own father. Wei Wuxian, stop making excuses. Kill whomever you want dead, why touch Jin Zizhuan? Jin Guangyao responded calmly, as you've seen, I killed all of them. Lan Zichen, and even in such a way. Tears rested at the corners of Jin Guangyao's eyes. He kneeled on the ground, back straight as he smiled, yes. An old stallion that gets in a rut wherever it goes really deserves such a death, doesn't it? Lan Zichen shouted, Ayao. Only after the word came out did he remember that he'd already one-sidedly broke off with Jin Guangyao, and thus he shouldn't call him like this. However, Jin Guangyao seemed as if he didn't notice it, his expression collected, brother, Don't be surprised that I can call him such dirty things. To this father of mine, I once had hopes as well. In the past, as long as it was his command, whether it be to betray sect leader Wen or protect Zhu Yang or remove anyone who disagreed, no matter how foolish it was, how hated I'd be, I'd obey regardless. But do you know what it was that made me lose hope completely? I'll answer your first question now. It wasn't that I'd never be worth a single hair on Jin Zixuan or one of the holes in Jin Zixuan. It wasn't that he took back Mo Xuanyu, it wasn't that he tried every possible way to make me a mere figurehead either. It was the truth he once told the maid beside me when he was out indulging himself again. Why was a sect leader who spent money like water unwilling to do the smallest favor and buy my mother's freedom? Simple, it was too much trouble. My mother waited for so many years, weaving together so many difficult circumstances when she talked to me, imagining for his sake so many hardships. And the real reason was only a single word: trouble. This is what he said: it's especially women who've read some books who think they're a level higher than other women. They're the most troublesome, with so many demands and unrealistic thoughts. If I bought her freedom and took her back to Lanling, who knows how much fuss she'd make. It was best that I let her stay where she was just like that. With her conditions, she'd probably be popular for a few more years. She wouldn't have to worry about her spendings for the rest of her life. Son? Oh, forget it. Jen Guangyao's memory was extraordinary. With such a word-by-word repetition, one could even imagine that drunk expression of Jen Guangshan's when he said these words: "Brother, look, these 3 words are all that I'm worth to my father. Oh, forget it." Ha 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 ha. Pain flashed before Lan Zichan's face. Even if your father. You. He still couldn't find an appropriate comment and gave up, sighing instead. What is the use of saying all this now? Jen Guangyao shrugged as he smiled. I can't help it. To seek pity even after doing all the bad things, that's the kind of person I am. At the word pity, he suddenly flipped his wrist. A red gookin string wrapped around Jinling's neck. Tears still hung at the corners of Jen Guangyao's eyes as he spoke, voice low, "Don't move." This was a surprise indeed. Zhang Qing roared, "Wei Wuxian. Didn't you confiscate his weapons already?" Under such circumstances, he somehow directly shouted at Wei Wuxian, his voice the same as how it was when he was a boy. Wei Wuxian shouted as well, "I did confiscate all his strings." It couldn't be that Jin Guangyao's cultivation was so high that he could pull things out of thin air, could it? Lan Wangji saw it through at one glance. He hid it inside his body. The rest of the people followed his words to see a slowly expanding cluster of red on the white cloth at the side of Jin Guangyao's waist. The string was red because it was covered in blood. Of course Wei Wuxian couldn't find it earlier on. Jin Guangyao didn't hide it on him, but instead hid it within his body. With the conversation, Lan Zichan's emotions were affected while other people's attention was diverted as well, and Jinling even rushed forward to approach him. The time was ripe, and so he caught everyone off guard as he quickly pierced his abdomen with his finger to dig it outside his body. Who knew that Jin Guangyao could do such a thing to himself in order to keep such a move? Although the string was as thin as possible, it was a piece of metal swimming around in his blood and flesh, after all, so it wouldn't have felt too pleasant. Zhang Cheng cried, ailing. Wei Wuxian couldn't help from moving as well, but immediately someone grabbed him. As he turned around to see that it was Lan Wangji, he finally managed to steady himself and remain collected. With Jinling under control, Jin Guangyao stood up. Sect leader Zhang, there's no need to be so agitated. I watched Ailing grow up, after all. Same as before, after we walk our own paths for a while, you'll see a perfectly unharmed Ailing in some time. Zhang Qing, Ailing, don't move. Jin Guangyao, if you want hostage, it's the same if it's me. Jin Guangyao answered in all honesty, no, it isn't. Sect leader Zhang, you're injured. It's difficult for you to move. You'll hold me back. Wei Wuxian felt sweat at his palms. Sect leader Jin, didn't you forget to take something with you? Your loyal subject is still here. Jin Guangyao looked towards Su Shi, who was still being held back with Baiken by Lan Wangji. Sushi immediately called, "Throat horse, sect leader, there's no need to care about me." Jin Guangyao immediately replied, "Thank you." Lan Zichen spoke slowly, "Sect leader Jin, you lied again." Jin Guangyao, "Just this once. There'll be no next time." Lan Zichen, "This was what you said last time. I can no longer tell which of your words are true." Just as Jin Guangyao was about to speak, a thunder of unprecedented volume roared. It was far in the distance, but sounded almost as if it was right next to one's ear. He couldn't help but shiver and swallow what he was about to say. Immediately after, 3 strange thumps bellowed outside the temple's doors. Compared to the act of knocking on the door, it had a greater resemblance to crashing into the door. It didn't sound like the slaps of a man's arm, more like someone held another's head and smashed it against the door again and again. The thumps got louder as the crack in the door bolt grew in size. The expression on Jin Guangyao's face became more twisted by each moment. At the 4th strike, the door bolt finally broke. Dense strands of rain as well as a pitch-black figure whirled through the door. Jin Guangyao's figure trembled, as though he wanted to dodge, but soon he stopped the urge. The figure didn't fly in his direction, but instead in Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji's. Calmly, the two parted for an instant before naturally standing side by side again. Turning around, Wei Wuxian called, "Wen Ning?" Wen Ning crashed into the Guanyin statue within the temple. With his feet above his head, he hung for a while before he plopped down and answered, "Young master." Seeing him, both Zhongqing and Jinling grew darkish in their faces. On the other hand, Nie Huiseng cried, "Brother!" Apart from Wen Ning, who flew inside, a taller silhouette stood before the temple's doors. His figure was firm, while 2 blank eyes rested on his ashen face. It was Qi Fengsun, Nie Mingju. Like a tower of steel, he stood in front of the Guanyin temple amid the storm, blocking the paths of everyone. His head sat level on his neck. Black, closely packed stitches could be seen at his throat. Somebody had somehow used a long thread to sew together the head and the headless body. Lan Zichen, "Brother." Jin Guangyao also murmured, "Brother." Within the temple, 3 people called Nie Mingju's corpse brother, but the 3 tones were drastically different. Jin Guangyao's face was full of a drowning fear. His entire body began to shiver. No matter dead or alive, the person Jin Guangyao was most scared of was none but this sworn brother of his whose temper tolerated no evil. As his body shivered, his hands shivered as well, and the bloody gun string he clutched tightly in his hand also began to shiver. At this instant, Lan Wangji suddenly unsheathed Baiken and slashed. In the blink of an eye, he'd flashed before Jinling while holding something. While Jin Guangyao felt his arm lighten. With a short pause, he looked down only to finally discover that his right hand was gone. His right hand was cut off from his forearm. What Lan Wangji held was the palm he'd been using to grip the gun string. At once, blood spilled everywhere. Jin Guangyao's face paled in pain. He didn't even have the energy to scream and only staggered backwards a couple of steps. Unable to hold himself up, he collapsed onto the ground. Sushi, on the other hand, began to scream. Lan Zichen seemed as though he wanted to help him for an instant, but in the end he dared not. Lan Wangji peeled open the fingers of the severed palm. The gun string loosened, and Jinling was finally out of danger. Just as Zhongqing was about to rush over to see if he was hurt or not, Wei Wuxian moved faster than him and grabbed Jinling's shoulders, examining carefully. After he determined that the skin on his neck was unscathed, without a single scratch, he finally let out a sigh of relief. In the past, whenever Lan Wangji attacked, he always left a few degrees of lenience. But right then, the situation was dangerous indeed. The gun string was extremely sharp. In the hands of someone who knew the cord assassination technique, it could cut through meat and bone as if through vegetables. On top of that, Jin Guangyao's hands were shaking. If he shook just a bit more or, with a more frightening possibility, if he forgot that he still had someone on his leash, and ended up making a run for it while holding the string. If Lan Wangji didn't sever the right hand with which he held the string so decisively, blood might have already spewed out of Jinling's severed head and body. The blood that came from where Zhen Guangyao's hand broke off splashed right onto Jinling, drenching over half of his body and a portion of his face. He was still muddled, having not realized what happened yet. Wei Wuxian, however, pulled him into a tight hug. Stand farther away from dangerous people next time, Yu Breath, why did you go so close? If the only son of Zhang Yanli and Jin Zixuan died in front of his eyes, Wei Wuxian would truly be at a loss as to what to do. Jinling wasn't used to being hugged by someone like this. Blood immediately flushed to his pale face as he pushed away from Wei Wuxian's chest. Grabbing him, Wei Wuxian hugged a couple more times, with more force, slapping his shoulder hard before he shoved him towards Zhongqing. Go. Don't run around anymore. Go to your uncle. Zhongqing caught Jinling, who still felt a bit dizzy. Looking across at Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji standing together, he hesitated for a moment before he turned to Lan Wangji, lowering his voice, "Thank you." Although his voice was low, there was no vagueness. Jinling said as well, "Thank you for saving my life, Han Guangjun." Lan Wangji nodded and said nothing. Baiken pointed at the ground with a slant. No drops of blood clung to the bright, crystalline blade as they all rolled onto the ground. He turned the blade to point at Tinai Mingju, who stood at the doorway. Wen Ning slowly crawled up and attached a broken arm. Be careful. His resentful energy is abnormally strong. In Chapter